Good morning and welcome back, everybody. This is the second session in the Merchants track on Tame Bay Live. My name's Sasha Wilson. I'm the Senior Commercial Director at Avalara. I'm very excited to be not only sponsoring the day, but also co-hosting the event and introducing the sessions. For those who don't know who Avalara are, we are the specialists in tax. So we're the company or the people that people will normally go to if there's any complex questions around cross-border global taxes. We can help companies understand where they have obligations when selling globally. We can help them get registered in the right countries or regions. And our software plugs into any e-commerce platform, marketplace platform, ERP, billing system to ensure that the right taxes and duties are being calculated at the checkout. So we will shortly go, I'll introduce you to this, the speakers for this session. If you have questions throughout the session, please use the Q&A function in the Totem platform to submit those questions, and those will get passed on to us. At the end of the session, there's going to be a break before the next session, and where you'll be able to visit the supplier showcase. You'll be able to meet fellow attendees and have a break and maybe a spot of lunch as well. So today's session is going to be with Linnworks, and I am joined today by Callum Campbell, who's the CEO of Linnworks, and he's brought with him two guest speakers, Kumaran Adithyan of eBay and Shahnin Sacki of Rex Brown. So if we wouldn't mind just maybe having some introductions first, we'll start with you, Callum, and then we'll go into the session.
Great, thanks very much, Sasha, and hello to everybody on the line. Hope the morning started off well. So I'm Callum. I am the CEO of Linnworks. Hopefully you've come across us before. If not, we're a commerce automation platform. So essentially, we help brands and retailers to grow sales by selling their products multi-channel across the internet and to connect in their commerce operations into one central platform that is Linnworks. So that our customers can grow, they can automate their processes, they can be in control from their businesses centrally. So we've got teams across Europe and North America, work with thousands of different brands and retailers, and excited to be joining this discussion today.
Thanks, Callum. Kumaran?
Thanks, Sasha. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Kumaran. I'm a senior director in the UK trading team at eBay, which means I'm part of the team that is responsible for working with our business sellers. So I've been at eBay about 4.5 years. Always been in the B2C team, worked across various parts of the business, various category teams, etc. And I'm now responsible for half the business, which is the kind of the hard goods side of things, so electronics, media, home and garden, and the parts and accessories side of things. So I've got various teams that work with sellers and brands, both out of Richmond in the UK, but also out of Dublin in Ireland. So looking forward to the session.
Thanks, Kumaran. And lastly, Shahnin.
Hi, everyone. My name's Shahnin Sacki. I am Managing Director of Rex Brown Limited. We are a omnichannel services and solution provider. We sit at that intersection between both, so both the platforms and then manufacturers and what we sometimes say challenger brands. So we help brands go online and help them and facilitate all of their e-commerce needs.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to Callum now. Callum's going to give us a presentation on total commerce and why it's essential for online retailers, and then you'll see myself, Kumaran and Shahnin for a Q&A in about 15-20 minutes. Over to you, Callum.
Great, awesome. Thanks, Sasha, and thanks to everybody again for joining the session. So what I'm going to do is I'll run through a few slides really to help frame up the conversation that we're going to have, which is thinking about the new world of commerce that we're living in, what's super important for brands and retailers if they want to be successful in this new world. So I'll run through some slides, present for 15 minutes or so, and then we'll jump into some discussion, and hopefully we're really engaging time ahead of us. So the place I wanted to start is just to talk around this, the idea of the rise of the effortless economy. So there are a lot of different forces at play right now that are shaping the world of commerce. Many different forces driving the market. We think about direct to consumer, just the growth of e-commerce in general, changing consumer behaviors. But the headline force that I want to flag that I think all brands and retailers need to be thinking about at the market level is this idea, the rise of the effortless economy, the idea that commerce is moving closer to the consumer. If we think back over time around how commerce has evolved, what we can see is this clear trend in that it is becoming easier and easier for the consumer to discover product, to purchase product, to have it shipped to them on their terms, and the whole returns process, the after sales process, also centered around the consumer. There was once a time where if we wanted to buy product, we had to leave our homes, head down the street, go to a store to get that product. There might have been limited range. We've now moved through multiple iterations of how that looks, with being able to shop online across websites, being able to shop everything on marketplaces. And really now we're arriving in a world of effortless commerce, where commerce comes to you, where we can shop products as consumers on all sorts of different platforms, from marketplaces, websites, in-stores, social media channels, the list goes on, and we're seeing more and more platforms become enabled. And so that's fantastic news for the consumer. Like, life is easy. I can get what I want as a consumer on my terms. I've got visibility over price. I can see range, the service that follows. It's all built around my experience. Fantastic for the consumer, but extremely challenging for brands and retailers. Brands and retailers need to adapt to this new environment, to this new way of thinking, to this new expectation from the consumer. And so off the back of this acceleration that we're seeing in the market, we're essentially seeing the enterprise businesses having to respond and overcome two primary challenges. And so to identify those two challenges, firstly, the challenge number one, the challenge of connecting commerce channels. If I'm a brand or a retailer, how do I make sure that I can make my products available for sale wherever my customers are choosing to shop, such that I can maximize my revenues, I can stay connected with my customers, and my brand, it doesn't become irrelevant. So how do I move from doing partial commerce, where I may just be selling in store or on my website or just on a marketplace, to doing total commerce, where actually I'm maximizing my market reach, maximizing my brand and my business potential? So that's challenge number one. How do I connect my commerce channels together? How do I do that simultaneously so that I'm doing total commerce? And then challenge number two in the effortless economy, well, how do I then connect all of my commerce operations together? If you like me, if you've worked in an e-commerce business before, in this new world, you'll know that a huge amount of the complexity when it comes to selling online and selling multi-channel is below the surface. It's beneath the tip of the iceberg. There's this massive overhead of complexity that exists. And as you integrate more back-end process, that complexity only rises. And so again, the challenge here is, well, how do you pull together your commerce operations such that you can deliver a great experience to your customers across all of your different selling channels? How do you establish that central control? And so these are the two headline challenges. And really the way that we're seeing the market move right now is towards a solution that allows brands and retailers to establish total commerce control at the center of their organization. Like, every one of our customers and our prospects that I'm speaking to is trying to figure out, how do we bring together the way that we manage our product information in our catalog, our inventory, maybe it's distributed across 3PLs and in our own warehouses, and then all of our order management and fulfillment. How do we integrate that into a central environment such that we can grow, that we can reach our customers across these channels, that we can automate processes so that our cost base scales effectively, and so that ultimately we can be in control in our business, that we understand our channels, we understand our products, we understand our workflows in a way that gives us the confidence to deploy capital into our business, both now and into the future. And so it's a complex world that brands and retailers that we're living in through this time. And really the challenge right now is, how do we establish that control such that we can thrive in this new world, that we can win in the effortless economy? And so as part of this, we've conducted a number of different studies across the market, both at the consumer level, speaking to consumers and really understanding, well, how do they see this new world? What's front of mind for the consumer? And then also with brands and retailers to understand their world. How well set up are brands and retailers for this new world, for the consumer expectation? And so I just wanted to flag this paper, this white paper that we've recently released, which essentially, it's called the Great Commerce Acceleration. And essentially it's looking at how retailers need to adapt if they want to win in the effortless economy, in this new world that we're all experiencing or a part of. How do retailers and brands need to adapt? And really the research went into looking at, well, how prepared are retailers to accommodate these new customer expectations, these new consumer expectations? What is that expectation? So if that's of interest to you, There's a link on screen. I think you can pick it up in the portal, but worth downloading, and hopefully that will be insightful and help you think about your strategy for your business. But what I wanted to quickly do now was just unpack 5 headlines from the research that we did there. So I'll just fly through these 5 headlines, and then we'll move into the panel discussion. So first things first, just kind of reiterating a bit of the intro there. What we found through our studies is, number one, that convenience is king. Like in the effortless economy, convenience is king for the modern consumer, and therefore brands and retailers, they must adapt to this. If we don't, then it ultimately will spell real challenge in our organizations. It's key to win in this new world. It's key to being set up in this way if you want to win in this new world. And so convenience is king. And so there's a number of data points here on screen, but first and foremost, what we found was that 76% of consumers who responded to our research, our study, cited that convenience was their number one priority when selecting a retailer, more so than price. And as I think about the way that I shop myself, and even how that's evolved through the pandemic, I certainly know that's true for me. Like maybe whereas once there were different factors, even around price that were more of a priority, in this time, increasingly I see in my habits, my expectations are rising in terms of how easy it is for me to discover a product and purchase it and have it delivered. And so we're seeing consistently that is the top priority for the modern consumer, convenience. Secondly, then, embracing omnichannel, it's a must for growth. As part of that drive from the consumer for experience, what we're seeing is that the consumer landscape is essentially increasingly fragmented. We're seeing commerce happen in a wider number of platforms, both online and offline. So the bricks and mortar store, it still plays a role, but it represents a channel alongside all of the other channels. And so if you really want to be driving growth into the future, then basically establishing a strategy where you understand your customer base, you understand where they are looking for product, where they're seeking to discover product and purchase product is key. And then establishing your business operations such that you can sell in those channels, again, is going to be key for your future as an organization. And so what we found, a few data points here, again, 52% of respondents said that they'd be launching products onto online marketplaces in the year ahead in 2022. 49% launching products onto social media storefronts or social media specific marketplaces. So again, we've seen the emergence of commerce on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And then 41% saying actually they were going to be adding a direct consumer offering through their own website. So that might break down into B2B brands who are moving towards a D2C model or introducing that, or alternatively, businesses that have grown up on marketplaces, establishing their own direct consumer kind of first party owned channel. But the core principle that came out of this was that there's an increased emphasis on being omnichannel in order to deliver growth in 2022. Thirdly, where are retailers, where are brands expanding? And again, the kind of headline here is we're seeing them move on to a range of new selling platforms. But what we're also seeing within that is that those platforms, the largest platforms, are having a huge kind of impact in the market, are capturing huge shares. So think of the likes of Amazon, of eBay, Facebook, Walmart in the States. Though the kind of the leading players really are capturing more and more of the market. We're essentially seeing the strengthening of marketplaces, and they are capturing more of the end consumer's eyeballs, which is driving more volume through those platforms. So again, what we're finding, and again, I'm seeing this, it's really interesting to observe, is the number of brands that are now really taking marketplaces in particular really seriously as part of their strategy. They want to have a holistic omnichannel strategy. They want to meet their entire market and do total commerce. And they recognize that they need to figure out how to play with these platforms. It might not be that they put their entire business onto these platforms, but for some it is. But for others, it's about how do we integrate these platforms, which represent such a large portion of the market, with a broader strategy. So number 4 or 5 then, visibility across channels is a challenge to expansion. So in the backdrop of this kind of ambition to grow, to sell across all of these different channels, the headline here is that businesses find it really hard to pull this all together in one single environment, to control elements like inventory across all of your different channels and all of your different fulfillment centers, to understand your orders, your product information across all of these different channels. And so we're seeing increased investment into technology, into service providers, into essentially teams that help organizations build the visibility that they need to effectively run their organizations. It's so key that when you've got a complex operation, that you understand what's going on so that you can confidently scale your organization. And the ability to basically expand onto new channels, or the ability or the lack of ability, has been a real barrier for many businesses. But again, the technology's landscape's changing. Of course, Linnworks is a platform that supports in this area, and it's a key kind of priority for many brands and retailers, figuring out how do we get visibility in order to do omnichannel really well with confidence. And then just fifth and finally, so centralization as well. So as well as that visibility, it's ultimately how do we centralize and automate operations? Again, if we want to grow effectively, we need the unit economics in our business to make sense. There's no point trying to scale off a cost base that fundamentally doesn't make sense. And so how do we establish automation in our organization that allows basically scalability to make a lot of sense for our business? And so again, there's increased appetite. We've seen this over the last few years, but increased appetite to make sure that workflows around order management, around inventory management, around management of product information is optimized. And so the results here, again, pretty clear. You see on the top line, 45% of respondents talking about increased investment into their order management processes, 41 into listing management and how to list product and sell across different channels, and then 32 increased investment into their inventory management. And so again, this is a key priority area, strong trend that came through in the research. And so just to summarize, I guess what I've shared there is we're seeing the rise of the effortless economy. We're seeing this acceleration of the market, and in response, brands and retailers too are having to accelerate, and they are having to adapt their business. And so the 5 headlines: firstly, convenience is king and retailers need to adapt. Secondly, embracing omnichannel, it's a must for growth. Thirdly, retailers, they're expanding to these new selling platforms. Fourthly, visibility across channels is a challenge. Many brands and retailers are facing this challenge. And then fifth and finally, just the importance of centralizing, automating operations such that the business can scale effectively, such that it's set up for growth. So I hope that's a helpful introduction. That's my final slide. We'll move into discussion now, but hopefully that frames up the conversation we're about to have.
That's fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you, Callum. That's a really, really neat way of putting those headlines there as well. Thank you. And I think, if you don't mind, I'm just going to pick on some of those, and I've got some questions lined up for each of you, just using those headlines as a backdrop. So if we think about the research you put together, that is, you found that embracing omnichannel is absolutely essential for growth, and brands are choosing to leverage platforms like eBay with the biggest reach. If we start with you, Kumaran, what are the insights brands can take from their own direct-to-consumer selling strategies to inform how they expand into more competitive channels like eBay?
Yes, Sasha. So a couple of thoughts there, and I might call out 2 things in particular. First, I think it's what content works, right? So I'm a content, I use it in a broad sense, everything from what products, what inventory, what promotions, what online content, what works on your own channels is a good starting point, combined with the data that marketplaces can give you, right? It won't be completely right that what works in your own channel won't work on marketplaces, but it's not going to be completely wrong either. And it's a great place to start. The second thing I'd call out are the operational learning. So Callum called out some of the challenges around how you get everything integrated in real time, but the disciplines of what you're doing on your own channels in terms of how you support buyers, how you do customer service, how to deal with returns efficiently, how to target repeat buyers, all of those disciplines and processes and approaches you've got that work on your own channel. It's about how do you make it work in a marketplace environment as well. Maybe the last thing I said, having said the two things, is the learnings go the other way as well, actually. What I've really seen is many of our established brands tell us how the things they learned selling on eBay, what they need to succeed on, in a marketplace environment, they're able to take back into their own channels as well and improve and help them up their game on their own channels as well.
Brilliant. A great insight there. Thank you, Kumaran. Let's move to you, Shahnin. And from your experience of launching brands onto marketplaces at Rex Brown, what have been the biggest challenges or considerations for brands and retailers?
So I think one of the things that we found is brands are coming to the likes of eBay and not realizing that they're already there. So the fact that the distribution that they have in the past of getting their products out there is products are already there. But what they don't have their identity, they don't have the control, they don't have it's old products, for example, that are years old. So I think there's a sort of a view on the brand saying that actually I want to be on eBay, for example, but I'm already there. How do I control this? How do I change the narrative? How do I make it look more official? How do I make the content better? What Kumaran said. So I think there's an element of them not realizing how much of their presence is already there and how much they can actually now turn around to make it more credible, basically, to what the brand actually wants. Price erosion is something that is very much in the forefront of the brands that are coming onto the marketplaces, because they're seeing that actually our prices are just getting eroded on multi-platforms. And then I think the other thing they're seeing is the fulfillment network of Amazon. It's so strong, it's so powerful that they want that similar sort of service on other platforms. And as Amazon sort of beats their pricing down, it's a challenge for them to realize that sort of model that Amazon have is hard to replicate across all these other platforms, basically. So it's not as easy as they first thought, but they're already there. They are already there.
Good to know. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you, Shahnin. Thanks for that insight. And then Callum, using the same talking points, what have you learned from Linnworks customers about winning in marketplaces, and how have you seen this evolve over the past 12 months?
Yeah, ton of learnings. I think the last 12 months have been really interesting for our customer base. But I think the headline is that those who have a really clear strategy for marketplace are the ones who are the winners. So there's different types of customers we work with. So some are kind of direct to consumer brands moving on to marketplaces. Others have grown up on marketplaces and potentially looking to expand into their own first party channel. Again, others might, be kind of, classic bricks and mortar brands moving online. But what's consistent for all of them is, does marketplace fit part of an overall strategy? And I think, and what I mean by that is, are they clear on which types of customers they're trying to serve through which channels with which products? And the businesses that try and kind of go to every channel, to every customer with every product are typically not the ones who are winning. But those who are super clear at saying, okay, we understand how Amazon may differ to eBay, for example, or versus our first party websites. We understand the type of customers that's going to shop there, why they're going to shop there, and then which products in our range we want to make available through those channels, and setting kind of a clear strategy for growth around those channels, what they're looking to deliver. Those have consistently been the winner. And I guess in terms of what it means for the last 12 months, that's only become amplified, the need for that strategy, because I think as marketplaces and online in general is becoming more competitive, those who have that strategy are basically performing better. And so I think that's the important thing. And what we've been encouraging all of our customers that we're engaging with is to ask those challenging questions like, are you super clear on your strategy? Which products you're taking to which channels? And have you got a kind of clear view of what you're trying to achieve? And I think those that get it right are the ones that are winning.
Fantastic. Great answers from the panelists there. Thank you. Let's move it a little bit and let's have a think about the next talking point. So for brands that are launching a presence on a third-party marketplace, let's have a think about some of the recommendations of how a brand should present themselves. Okay, so that's the theme for this set of questions. And again, if we start with you, Kumaran, what are the key considerations to maintain brand integrity, but leverage the features and reach of a marketplace like eBay?
Yes, that's a good question. And actually, and Callum and I haven't compared notes, but my answer to this actually starts exactly with what Callum said, I think. And maybe I'm stepping back a bit, but because understandably, this is a concern for brands up front. But if you kind of work through the strategy that Callum talked through, then actually the concern goes away, because you're very clear about what you're trying to do with each marketplace actually you're going after, with each channel you've got, with each online channel, which customers and which products. And actually that has to be the starting point, actually, because if you're clear on your marketplace strategy, then I think everything else flows. So, just on eBay, we see brands have a number of strategies, right? Some of them do have everything that's in the D2C channel because that's the right fit with their customer base and the way eBay and their brand works. Some only use it for refurbished or clearance or end of life items. Some only use it for marketplace exclusives, and often it's a combination of those things out there. But having that strategy means the whole point about how you present yourself flows out of that, actually. So depending on what you want to achieve on each marketplace, the way you present yourself and how you show up actually follows naturally. It becomes less of a separate discussion. It's when you're having a separate discussion that I think it's not working. It's got to link back to the overall strategy. So can't reiterate enough what Callum just said. Maybe the only thing I would add to that is, regardless of the above, is then be authentic, actually. So, your brand is an incredible asset, and which people have, brands have built up and invested lots behind. And what doesn't work is trying to be something different in a marketplace. You think, I've got to show up differently and be different in a marketplace. Yes, you've got to tailor and work and kind of work with their marketplace, but it's got to fit authentically with your brand. If you don't do that, that doesn't work. Customers see right through that.
Wise words there. Thank you, Kumaran. And then we'll move over to you, Shahnin. So using the same theme, what do you recommend to retailers as the key strategic decisions to make with multi-channel selling when we're talking about brand, price, and product choices?
I'm going to try not to use the word strategy because Callum and Kumaran have used that. And the main thing that to reiterate what they both said, actually, one of the main things we said is, how do we differentiate yourselves on these platforms? How do we, as an example, rebundle certain packages? How do you get to a certain price point that is more effective for the customer? Do you add in value adds? So I don't know if it might be just a beauty line, right? You might have a fragrance. Could you add a wash bag with it? All of these sort of elements is what we think we have to do to stand out amongst the crowd. It is a very, very noisy platform. All of them are. And to search and become dominant and get your sort of ranking up on the listings is very important. So yeah, we always say bundles, unique SKUs, product differentiation. What new price points can we get to? I'm a big fan of range plans. So if you have, 25 SKUs, do you split them out between the 5 marketplaces, have 5 on each, but of different variations? How do you promo? So if you've got a 3-month window, do you have a promo month 1 on X channel, month 2 on channel Y, and so on and so forth? So these are the sort of things that we recommend the brands to do when coming onto the marketplaces. But again, it's a very, very noisy background. And because most of them are coming in on an already foundation of their products being listed already, it's almost half of the act is, do I police the old listings to get rid of them to then start afresh? So these are the certain recommendations that we're doing to sort of, get these brands more prominent up on their listings on these platforms.
Brilliant. Lots to think about there. Thanks, Shahnin. Callum, let's move to you. How important is the operational side in relation to building the brand profile on a marketplace?
Yeah, very, very important. Again, I think anyone who's sold in a marketplace will know it's key. Ultimately, if we think back to my comments around effortless economy, the modern consumer expects this kind of seamless experience. And that's certainly the standard that every marketplace is going after. They want to give the end customer a fantastic experience. And therefore, operational proficiency is key to that. So, making sure essentially that your product is described accurately. So the person, the consumer buys the actual product they think they're buying from you, and that it's shipped to them, and essentially you satisfy the promise you made to them at checkout. I think so often, it's easy to think, okay, I made the sale, that's kind of it now, I've got money in the bank. But I think if you're looking to play the long game with a marketplace, it's about delivering a high quality experience that's going to drive strong feedback, and discoverability for your products in future. So recognize that high quality operations is an investment into revenue as well on these marketplaces.
If I just jump in there, Sasha, sorry, I think just to kind of reiterate, the other interesting thing for me that Callum pointed out there is you used the phrase, I think, marketplace, a more competitive channel, and that's definitely true. And I think Shaheen's kind of talked about the examples, but I think people often think of it as more competitive on a price perspective alone. What we actually find is often the competition is more on the operational side, actually, sometimes, because you've got so many different sellers delivering such great standards that actually it's as important, if not more, I think, to get the whole operation. I mean, technical integration, the listing quality, and then the delivery and kind of post-sale service right. And that's often where the competition is more competitive, I'd say, a marketplace there. Because you can work around price and stuff with some of the tactics Shaheen called around, but you can't on the operational stuff. You have to get it right. Yeah,
totally. And I think just to that point, it's like convenience is king. And I think the first and foremost, yes, like customers want a good price, but ultimately the whole experience needs to be strong. That's what's going to drive re-engagement in the future. And just to add to this, I was having a conversation with somebody recently at Nike, a senior person there, who was talking about almost like, that's a brand that has been so invested in its marketing and its brand profile, yet they were just acknowledging how almost the battle of the future exists in, to some extent, they'll keep reinvesting into their brand, of course, but into that post-sale experience with the customer, into supply chain quality, inventory control, the seamlessness for the customer experience. And so, if you think of some of the most fourth kind of progressive brands in the world, like Nike, they're thinking, yes, we need to build the brand profile, the revenue side of our business, but the foundation for that is a really strong operational backbone wherever we're selling to our customers.
Brilliant. And it's kind of a nice segue talking about, it's not just about the price of the convenience. There's a lot of other factors to take into account when selling in a marketplace. A lot of the departments behind the scenes that are involved as well. So, I'm just keen to talk about the next talking point here. How do brands need to adapt internally when you're adding a new marketplace to a selling channel? So if we start with you again, Kumaran, what do brands need to consider to be competitive, drive discoverability and visibility on a marketplace?
Yeah, I think, again, it goes back to what you're trying to sell, I think, is what drives this. I've seen different models work across different brands, but it comes down to what you're trying to sell with what going after which customers, which kind of defines what departments internally come together. Clearly, every brand is organized differently. There isn't one answer, but that's the principle, right? So, for example, if your focus is on clearance, refurb, end of life inventory, the team in charge of this, sometimes recoveries, it might be in operations, needs to partner closely with the digital organization to get it right. If the focus is on exclusives, then the sourcing team needs to be part of it. So, it kind of depends on the inventory going after. Probably a couple of broad requirements is a team with access to the inventory, being fully part of the marketplace team, and the exact team depends on what the inventory is. And then a solid operational setup and/or a strong partner to run the operation. It's kind of reiterating what we just talked about. I think what doesn't work kind of very clearly is trying to do it in a silo, right? Because sometimes you've got one part of the organization in a silo, a separate marketplace organization or a separate digital org, just trying to run the marketplace offer by themselves and not being linked into the rest of the organization. That just means the customer offer isn't appealing enough or strong enough.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, Kumaran. Shaheen, we'll move to you. I know you like the word strategy. So what is key to a successful inventory management strategy with multi-channel retail? And how do you ensure that your stock levels for all selling channels are optimized?
I'm just trying to find a thesaurus word for another word for strategy. So no, it's very difficult, to be honest with you. And it's actually a nightmare because we've got X amount of channels all feeding into what we do, which is one stock pool. And I guess a shout out here for Linnworks because they do help with their software on a lot of these things, but it's a layered approach. So you have one stock pool, you have multiple platforms eating into the stock, you have buffers. I think Callum mentioned on his slide for automation and centralization, we have a whole merchandising team in place. We do various print runs so people to sort of understand that. That means we're constantly printing the orders to make sure that they're A, dispatched in time, and then B, we're monitoring the stock levels in real time as well, so that we don't get caught out. Even with all of those things, there are daily deals on eBay. There are daily deals on other platforms that you don't necessarily have a forecast for. So what do? You buffer stock in, but you can't bring in too much. You have not enough, you sell out. There's an eBay buyer going, where's my stock? So it's a constant learning and data exercise. Pretty much what happened here, forecasting. So it's a very, very sort of challenging environment. And even with our own automation systems with Linnworks, working with the platforms, working with the brands. There isn't a one easy answer, I'm afraid, but it needs a variety of different stakeholders, departments, and platforms all working together at the same time. So yeah, very challenging.
Brilliant. Yeah, definitely. Systems are key to all of that, I'm sure. So Callum, using the same theme, how do brands establish internal control and keep teams aligned as the business expands into different selling channels?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably echoing a bit of what Shahnin said there, but essentially, our organizations are complex, and I think getting the kind of technology in place centrally that really brings a lot of your operations together allows you to do that. I think if you've got a central view of inventory, of your selling channels, of your orders, of your data, then I think you can align your teams around that. I've certainly known it in my experience of building businesses, when teams have a kind of consistent and aligned view of things, they can then be empowered to make much better decisions. And so I think getting your organization like the right tech stack in place, like a Linnworks, obviously, there's a bias there from me, but really like a system that's going to help you centralize, gives you the visibility. But then once you have the visibility, it then allows you to move faster. I think this is the key thing. It then gives you a level of agility to say, okay, we're selling on one channel, we can quickly bring in a new channel and expand our reach. And so actually, again, getting that central control established early gives you the visibility, but it also gives you the ability for your team to then understand how to use those types of systems and move on to new channels faster, to grow revenues faster. And it's ultimately then, it's the same back-end workflows. As you plug in, say, an international marketplace, ultimately you're feeding those sales into the same back-end workflows, or there's certainly some similarity. So the overhead of going into those new channels massively reduces when you're using the right technology.
Brilliant. Thank you, Callum. The next questions are related to customer shopping expectations and behaviors when using marketplaces like eBay. So Kumaran, if you taking eBay into perspective, what are the significant changes that you've seen in the way that sellers and shoppers are operating on your marketplace?
Yeah, I'll start with shoppers maybe, because I think the sellers are probably kind of adapting to this, Sasha. So I think we're seeing a real kind of dichotomy actually, but some interesting overlap into two. So kind of shoppers are looking for value, unsurprisingly, right? We all know about the rate of inflation, the cost of living pressures in the economy, and they're coming through there. I'm sure they're coming through in brands' own channels. They're coming through on marketplaces loud and clearly. But at the same time, shoppers are also actually looking for something meaningful they can engage emotionally with. For some shoppers, it's about buying more sustainable products, so non-new, everything from refurbished to end of life to kind of used. For others, it's about supporting small businesses and smaller brands. Others, it's about buying personalized products. There's a wide range. But the common thread is shoppers engage emotionally with these products at some level, and it means something to them. And broadly, what we're seeing is that sellers are following these trends. We're seeing, a real uptake in more sustainable products, refurbished, more personalized products, more unique kinds of inventory, and how brands then build that emotional engagement with shoppers and buyers. But at the same time, how do you do that and deliver value is always the kind of challenge to work across. And sometimes it's a natural fit. So if you've got something that's a unique product at end of life, that price can't be compared that easily, and there's a bit more margin in it sometimes, that they can deliver great value as well as something meaningful for the buyer. And other times it's about, Shahnin talked about how brands are developing, adding value in different ways, bundles and so on, exclusives, etc., or using targeted customer offers. So the trends, I think, come from the shoppers, and what we're seeing is sellers are following those two trends.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kumaran. Shahnin, similarly, when we're talking about the back-end processes that sellers are using, how do they, what do they need to consider when they're adapting in order to maintain their customer experience and operational standards? I think you're on mute. There we go.
So from outside, we usually take it into two sort of the front end, meaning the content, the images, good write-ups, great titles. I think this is a key part that a lot of merchants don't consider that goes into it, because it's a lot of work. That's your shop window. So I think that's a key operational fundamental that needs to be improved on and something to be considered. And then from there, there's definitely the back end side of things. So whether it's the warehouse fulfillment, order management, little things such as customer services play a crucial role in ensuring that you're engaged with the customers and with the platform. Platform knowledge as well is crucial, just knowing the platform, how to navigate around it. And one thing that is very, very difficult to navigate through is finances. So if you're dealing with multi-channel, multi-platform, each platform has its own financial systems that are not connected, that don't make any sense to each other whatsoever. So if I'm looking at it as a broad sort of departmental way, I would say, yeah, you've got content and creative, you've got customer services, financials, and then the warehouse operations are all crucial to a smooth operation. That it's got to be a slick machine to ensure what Kumaran touched on, a good user experience, basically.
Fantastic. Thanks, Shahnin. And then lastly, the same theme to you, Callum. How do retailers need to manage the end-to-end shopping experience for consumers, from product discovery right through to fulfillment?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately about seeing it as a single experience. I think that's that kind of the headline is not to sort of see it in a disjointed way. It may feel operationally disjointed within the business, so there's all these different elements to consider, but the end customer just sees it through one lens, right? And so it's really about, I think, going back to the kind of, to the drawing board, as it were. What does that journey look like for your customer? Like, have you mapped that journey? Have you really understand what convenience and quality looks like at every stage of that journey? It's really hard to do. It's probably easy to draw up, but then to implement and execute on that is challenging. But I think that's the headline piece, is like, it's just taking that time out of the business to really assess what the experience is really like for the customer, mapping it clearly and understanding where are you introducing friction, like where is the experience not as strong as it could be. And then I think committing as an organization to regularly improving, the entire journey. But again, I think the temptation for any organization is we get focused on certain parts of our business and they feel like the priority, and actually we've got to look at the entire customer experience end to end. I think if you get that right, you're constantly challenging yourself, leveling up every part of the experience, then it's the basis of a really strong strategy.
Great. Brilliant. Thank you, Callum. So on to the last question. There may be time for one more before the session ends. Now you've heard from Callum and Shahnin and Kumaran, throughout both the presentation and the panel sessions. There's been little snippets of insight into marketplaces and success on marketplaces in 22 and beyond. I'm just going to ask each of you, and I'll reverse it actually, just to kind of change the order a little bit. We'll start with you, Callum, maybe as well. But what do you think are the biggest opportunities for brands selling via marketplaces in 2022? How best can they leverage this channel as part of their multi-channel selling strategy?
Yeah, I think the big opportunity, probably coming back to my kind of point earlier, is around getting that strategy figured out. So what's clear is that marketplaces are winning big. Like in this new world, if you think about the marketplace model, marketplaces are the experts at driving consumer engagement. Like they're essentially sort of virtual platforms that are awesome at driving an audience. And so rather than kind of almost fighting them, I think it's how do you play with them? How do you play with these platforms and build a strategy that considers them? It doesn't mean it's your entire business, but there's some consideration. And so I think the big opportunity is, well, there's these huge audiences and marketplaces. It represents such a large share of the market. Getting that right strategy, understanding, that mix again, which channels, which customers, which products. I think that's the big opportunity in the year ahead. And ultimately, it's going to give you more reach. So some practical examples of that. If you've got your strategy right, well, it means that you can go to new audiences who may be new to shopping online, who maybe engage with marketplaces for the first time. Or another example would be, cross-border and international expansion, as well as the kind of headline marketplaces we're all probably quite familiar with. There's an emerging number of marketplaces in most geographies, the kind of domestic marketplace that's looking for North American, European brands and retailers to be putting product onto those channels as well. So I think there's huge growth opportunities, and it all starts with a really clear view of figuring out where marketplaces fit as part of your wider strategy.
Great. Thanks, Callum. Shahnin, we'll just go to you as well. So what are the biggest opportunities in your eyes for brands selling via marketplaces in 2022?
So I think there's a misconception of these D2C sites that it's easy to do. It's easy to build customers. It's easy to get the data, and it's not. It's a very, very expensive exercise. And marketplaces provide that platform, that reach, the customers. So you don't have to do necessarily that clearly expensive exercise of finding your own customers to come to your own D2C website to then sell on them. And this is where I see the opportunity for marketplaces in this year and onwards, to be honest with you. They're ready-made platforms. They have great back-end facilities, great sellers, and the convenience part, which Callum mentioned, is key. So everything that was previously mentioned, I agree with. Well.
Great. Okay, thanks, Shaheen. And then Kumaran, obviously we've got a session this afternoon with some of your eBay colleagues who might be giving some tips and tricks, but in your eyes, what are some of the biggest opportunities for brands on eBay this year?
It's, so at the top line, it's what Shaheen and Callum said, right? So eBay's got 28 million buyers, more than 1 in 2 online shoppers in the UK, and it's access to those buyers. It's more efficient, as Shaheen said, than trying to go your own route in most cases. But interestingly, the more interesting bit is also that, number of brands have done the exercise of trying to understand how incremental those buyers are. And on average, having looked at a few of these, about 80% is often the number that come up. 80% of customers whom they get on eBay are new customers versus their own site. It's also a different customer base. It's also size, but there's also breadth and variety of buyers you're able to access via marketplaces. So that's the main thing. In terms of more specifics, I think it's being clear. But look for eBay this year. I've talked about some of the trends in terms of non-new inventory, exclusives, etc. So I think that's where I think the kind of tactical opportunities lie this year. And in terms of how it's, just to summarize what we talked about, as being clear on what the strategy, inventory, and getting the operations right, the technical integration, the listing standards, the delivery and customer service. And then lastly, using the tools the marketplace has, right? Everything helping identify what products, to managing performance ongoing through to targeting individual groups of customers. Marketplaces have tools to and partners have tools to let you do this. So kind of definitely make use of those.
Brilliant. Okay, that's great. Thanks for your input, your insights, Kumaran, Shaheen, Callum. One question has come in, Callum, which you might be able to answer. I think a few people have been asking about the insight that the research that you put together. I think you put a link up earlier. Is that going to be available in the showcase area? Do you know?
I believe it is available in the showcase area, and then if you don't have access to it, I can't actually see the portal myself right now. But if you don't, then you should be able to just type Linnworks Great Commerce Acceleration, and you'll be able to go to a web page where you can download the paper as well.
That's brilliant. Okay, excellent. Thank you, everybody. Really fantastic session. Hope everyone enjoyed the insight from Callum, Shaheen, and Kumaran.